Hey everyone, YouTubers, Joe here. Today's video, okay, by the way, it is Monday, October, I think it's the 11th. It's Canadian Thanksgiving, so we have a long weekend here in Canada. So I actually was called in sick on Friday because I couldn't sleep all night Thursday night. So I've had a super long weekend, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday. Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, pretty much all 3 days, I laid in bed. Not that I was sick. You know, I'm just lazy, watching 2 full seasons of Mad Men, which I had never seen before. And then once I got into, and I didn't really want to get hooked on a new TV show. I'm not really big in TV shows. I hate getting hooked on stuff because then, you know, there goes, it's a commitment, you know. Anyway, I watched Mad Men and I'm hooked. And the show, those last 3 days, like I think it was 26 hours of television, have really started playing with my head and really rattled me. I actually was in, I would say, kind of a bit of a bad mood yesterday as a result of watching all this show. And it's not, the show is good. I mean, don't not watch it because it'll put you in a bad mood. I mean, it's a very, very good show. And apparently it's quite true to life, as life was in 1960, 61, 62, when it was set. And it takes place in a Madison Avenue office. Hi, Stanley. Stanley hears my voice and he comes to visit. And it's about a bunch of ad men who, because they were on Madison Avenue, called themselves Mad Men, I guess, back in the 60s. And the secretaries who work in their office. And the secretaries are all women and the ad men are all men. And the sexism is sick, like beyond sick. And there are scenes in that show that will just curl your hair. And please settle down, please, please, please. When I'm making a video, I always get noisy cats on video. They're quiet the rest of the time, I promise you that. Anyway, I work in what I consider to be a sexist environment, and I'm all wrong because that's nothing compared to, now, that's not, it's nothing. But compared to what life was like back then, you know, we've come a long way, baby, so to speak. And I think what upset me most was that I saw elements of myself in some of these women and the way they behaved. Elements. There was a scene where one of the women gets actually raped by her boyfriend on her boss's floor, and she brought him over to show him off to all her coworkers because he's a doctor and she's all got a big ring and she's proud to show it off. And he rapes her, date rape or whatever you call it, because, you know, she's telling him no and he's not listening, and he thinks she's a slut anyways and she wants it. So and at the end she just kind of puts herself together and puts on her little hat and her gloves or whatever, and she goes back out to the office and they go to dinner. She's like, okay honey, let's go, we've got reservations at 7. And she just has to kind of put on this plastic face and act like nothing's wrong. And I was kind of raging by the end of that scene because I see a lot of myself in that at work, where you just have to kind of keep on pretending that nothing's wrong. And it's very harrowing. It's very, very hard on your soul. I can see why these 60s housewives kind of went nuts. A lot of them like lived on drugs and mother's little helpers or whatever they were called to just get through the nonsense of the day. I can kind of get that. There were some other scenes about like the gross different pay differences between the men and the women, and how the women did twice the work for, you know, 1/5 of the pay and had not a leg to stand on. There were no HR departments. There were no equal pay for equal work of equal value laws or anything like that. And I was just on the phone with my mom, and my mom worked, you know, my mom was kind of a bit ahead of her time, I guess. My mother was born in 1941, and when she was 17 in 1958, she graduated from high school, and she had taken an extra year of secretarial school or something, and she got a job, and she moved from Guelph to Burlington, Ontario, which was about an hour away. But I think it was 1959, for a young woman, single, to move away from home and get a job was kind of unheard of at the time. I mean, it was really unusual. And she, I don't think she wanted to be like, she didn't have aspirations for a career the way some, I mean, it's not like she wanted to be a teacher or a doctor or a lawyer or something like that, but I think she wanted to get out from under her mother's thumb, and she wanted a life. I mean, my mother got married in 1970, so I mean, that was 11 years where she lived alone through all her 20s. She got married at the age of 30. So throughout the entire 60s, my mom was kind of like one of these Mad Men secretaries, you know, and she just told me today, the day she got hired in 1959, she said she was hired at $140 a month. And when she finished up in 1969, just before she got married, she was making $300 a month in 11 years. I guess she doubled her pay in that time. But she was saying to me that in 1968, she had worked for the same company for something like 8 years, and she was very good at her job. And she asked them for a raise from like 250 to 300 or something, and they said no. But my mom knew they were hiring new girls. By the way, they were always called girls, even though they were grown women. They hired the new girls at 315, and my mom kind of made a bit of a stink, which is unusual in those days. And they sent somebody down from headquarters and to explain to her that the new girls out of college or out of school, secretarial school, won't work for less than 315. And that there was some pay schedule whereby my mother would never get a raise. And that was it, that was all. And my mom said, but I have a job offer to go work elsewhere for $100 more per month. And they said, well, that would be a bad idea because it'll interfere with your pension. And shit! Like, they told her a bunch of shit. And they wouldn't give her the raise. So she did quit. And she went to work for a different company, and that's where she was making $300 a month, where she eventually finished up at before she got married and had kids. Because, of course, why would you get married and have kids and keep a job? She eventually got other jobs as the years went on, but that was sort of her secretarial life. And my heart breaks for her because I get that it's, to be a woman in those days must have been so hard. And my mother is such an independent spirit, and I know her so well. And to picture this woman, you know, she's passive in so many ways, and I criticize her all the time. And yet, by those standards, she was really the least passive person in the room. You know, she was pretty aggressive for her day and pretty independently spirited for her day. And I often ask questions and wonder why I wound up the way I wound up. Or, you know, I have such a fierce sense of injustice that I actually get physically ill when I'm just going to tilt this down a bit. I get physically furious anger. I get this creak and crease in my forehead when I get angry, and I get angry about so many things that's related to gender and inequality and racism and sexism and homophobia, and anytime someone gets treated differently because of something they cannot control, and the fury at white male privilege just makes me crazy, just so crazy. And yet there's nothing I can do about it. You'd think I would just stop being angry and accept that this is life, but no, I never stopped being angry about it. Coming to terms with the fact that I'm not really female, like I don't identify as female anymore, I identify as gender queer, which is good because it means I think about women as other, the same way I think about blacks or Jews or men for that matter. I think about those people, them over there, not me, because it's not me. I don't live in that world. I live outside of all of that. Maybe it's a cop-out. I don't know. Maybe it's just the way that, you know, like victims of sexual abuse can't talk about it because if they talk about it, they'll crack. If I talk about the injustices towards women, I think I will crack. So I can't, as it pertains to me, like as a personal thing. So I wonder. It's me just musing out loud. So yeah, I just saw Mad Men, 2 full seasons in 2.5 days. And did a number on my head. Really did a number on my head. Talk to you later. Hope you have a good week.